WHGE 95.3 FM. Coming up, the Open Eye.
Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure.
Hey, Jafar. What's up, bro?
We do so because the chains of oppression on our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove.
Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM, the Advocacy Education Station. I'm your host, third eye optometrist, Patrice Gibbs, here to get your eye open. Let me get them started right here, like I always do. Every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. And that's what we do right here. Brother Andre, glad you joined us. All right, let me get my disclaimer out the way and we'll go on with the show. All right, here we go.
The views and opinions expressed on Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual.
It's the Open Eye. Right here, right here. Okay. The forest was shrinking, but the trees kept voting for the axe. The axe was clever and convinced the trees that because his handle was made of wood, he was one of them. That sound familiar? Brother Jardea, what's up? All right. Ancestors are not a matter of belief. Okay? You had them whether you like it or not. They are you and you are them. Without their first existence, you wouldn't be here. This is not a matter of debate. These are teachings that you should tie them in your heart for a daily dose of remembrance. All right. All right, all right. And this goes right in line with that. Because I hear so many Christians say that ancestor worshiping is the tool of the devil and silliness like that. Most Christians don't know this, but in the entire first Christian century, Jesus is not mentioned by a single Greek or Roman historian, religion scholar, politician, philosopher, or poet. His name never occurs in a single inscription, and it is never found in a single piece of private correspondence. Yeah, and I know how, some of you, some of my Christian friends and what have you, and got excited when Russia showed the iconic paintings from, you know, their early centuries and what have you. You have to remember Russia's proximity to Constantinople. And why I bring that up, because in 325 AD, the Council of Nicaea, you know, and also Sister Tracy, and yes, Brother Jafar, belief requires no intelligence or no knowledge. I remember one of my old head buddies, one of my elders, said he is not satisfied to believe. He has a need to know. And what's going on right now with the they should be called the Know Nothings, the MAGA crowd of the Republican Party, which is taking over the Republican Party. You know, their things are based on their Christian nationalism. And they've even gone so far as to say, you know, the Constitution is based on the Bible, which is not. Let's not be silly. You know, and most of them, like I mentioned last week, notorious Negro P and Ben wench Candace Owens said science is a cult and shouldn't be taken seriously. Well, you know, there was another time when science wasn't taken seriously and religion ruled the world. It was called the Dark Ages, because it was the Dark Ages in Europe, not in Africa. Yeah, and this is, like I told you many times, Christianity is not their religion. Their religion is white supremacy, and that's pretty much what they call it, Christian nationalism is. It's nothing but white supremacy. It's just, you know, they try to fix it up. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's something. I told the story of the Acts. These people constantly vote against their own interests. It's amazing. It's how stupid they are. You know, when Ronald Reagan made roasting hell, made the devil sodomizing with a pitchfork, came up with the trickle-down economic theory. Mm-hmm. His opponent in the Republican Party at the time, George Bush, H.W. Bush, the first Bush to be president, said it was voodoo economics, and he was absolutely right. And what it's shown us, 50 years of trickle down has turned millionaires into billionaires. I think I got that from Sister Tracy. And it's turned the working class into the working poor. The working poor. You go to work every day, and yet with one job you cannot earn enough to survive, let alone live. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. This is the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. Last night I was talking with my big little brother, I was calling my younger brother, Kurt. And one of the things that came up was some things that happened on past shows, some things I talked about. And he said he didn't get a chance to catch some of the history that I've talked about, especially some things I talked about Harlem. Hey, cousin Cassandra, I see you there, all right. And one of the things I talked about was Dickie Wells, the fabulous Mr. Harlem. Richard Dickie Wells, known as Mr. Harlem, lived from 1908 to 1949, died young, was one of Harlem's most gifted tap dancers, nightclub owners, and last but certainly not least, is most notorious gigolo and playboy. Wells was the man in his day, responsible for driving women all across the country crazy. His career began in 1920. Self-taught, he was dancing with the Wells, Mordecai, and Taylor trio, who performed on street corners for nickels and pennies. Soon the trio was performing in upscale clubs such as Small's Paradise and the Cotton Club. When most black men were making $25 to $35 a week, Dickie was pulling down $500 a week. We're talking in the 1920s. That's a lot of money. Performing at the Cotton Club on the west side of Harlem. And that's where, according to legend, Dickie discovered that his female admirers weren't only interested in his dancing, but interested in him as well. By the late 1920s, Dickie was spending more time in the company of rich women than he was on stage performing. And tales of his extracurricular activities in the bedroom were beginning to spread. Soon, women from all across the country were pouring into Harlem to meet the baby-faced dancer who was often mistaken for a Cuban due to his light skin and wavy hair. And these women included actresses Nina Mae McKinney, Joan Crawford, Tallulah Bankhead, Ava Gardner, and Lana Turner, Marguerite Chapman, who later married Willie Mays, and Jean Parks, sister of the founder of Parks Sausage. Cat was something else, and many, many more. They, in addition to several other women, lavished Dickie with expensive gifts, first-class trips around the world, and of course, money. And lots of it too. Lana Turner in particular became so demanding of Dickie's time, so much so that Dickie decided to introduce the blonde bombshell to his good friend, heavyweight champ Joe Louis, just to get her off his back. Cat was something else. This would mark the beginning of Lana Turner and Joe Louis's love affair. It was said that Clark Gable, Earl Flynn, James Cagney, and one-time Harlem resident Charlie Chaplin were all in competition with Dickie. As Dickie's reputation grew, so did his interest in owning a Harlem-based restaurant, Dickie Wells. According to street legend, a rich female admirer of his fronted him the cash to start a supper club, which by the early 1930s became one of the most popular night spots in Harlem during the Jazz Age. And it was here that the chicken and waffle recipe came to life. Since Dickie's club catered to the late night, early morning crowd, most of his customers are undecided on whether to order dinner or breakfast. Dickie fixed that problem by serving them a little bit of both. Some coffee here, a shot of bourbon there, and a hot plate of chicken and waffles. Yeah. This odd but tasty dish soon became the new craze in Harlem, and everyone started to get in on the action. Actress Ethel Waters opened her own restaurant that served the dish, as did another Wells, J.T. Wells, who opened the famous Wells Supper Club, not to be confused with Dickie's Club, in 1938. But it was Dickie who first introduced Harlem Nights to the dish in 1930. Roscoe's House of Chicken and Waffles is the most popular restaurant chain that continues to serve the dish. Its founder, Herb Hudson, who was born and raised in Harlem, brought the dish to the West Coast in the 1970s. As for Wells, life would not end on a good note for the Harlem Playboy. Drugs and alcohol cut his life short when he died from a drug overdose at the tender age of 41 in 1949. Now, when news in the California Eagle newspaper of his death spread throughout Hollywood, Ava Gardner, formerly Frank Sinatra's wife, cried for days. while Tallulah Bankhead, another white actress, collapsed and fainted. Billie Holiday was scheduled to perform his funeral, but was too distraught to do so. Over 40,000 people, mostly crying women, attended his funeral service. Dickie Wells. Panach Reports writes that, according to Bumpy Johnson's widow, Mamie Johnson, Dickie used some of his gigolo fortunes to buy his mother, Carrie, a brownstone on Strivers Row, one of the most beaten neighborhoods in Harlem. He moved into the basement apartment and lived there until his death. In the early years of the 1950s, during a post-funeral trial, Wells was accused of selling cocaine to actress Tallulah Bankhead at the Plymouth Theater dressing room in New York. Dickie Wells, Mr. Harlem, cat was something else. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. Hey, Bev, I see you, sister. All right. I'm doing well. Patrice Gibbs on The Open Eye. Hey, Sister Sherry, I see you. Good morning. Weird how no one is calling on a convicted felon to drop out of the race, huh? And isn't there something in the Constitution about, you know, if you're involved in crimes against the nation, 34 counts, you shouldn't be allowed to run for office? I got this from Sui Davies Akumbawa. Hope I pronounced your name right, brother. He relates to us. As someone from a country that has witnessed a civil war, totalitarian leaders, ethno-religious pogroms, state-sanctioned brutality, and slow eradication of human rights under the guise of criminality, I can frankly tell Americans, you don't know what you're playing with. Don't know what you... The biggest mistake I see is people waiting for a big sign that'll tell them that things have gone too far. One big thing that police or lawmakers or the president, leaders will do that will cross the line. They're waiting for it. One big sign. It'll never come because they won't cross it. They move the line. That line you think you stand behind is shifting every day with little actions, bills, legislations, police murdering people on camera and not getting charged. White supremacists threaten leadership and getting a free pass. The line will not stop moving. And one day, it'll be too late. Yeah. That's word. Morning, Sister Nzinga, Brother Allen. That line won't stop moving. You know what? A frog doesn't know it's in hot water if the temperature is turned up a little by little. By the time the frog realizes it's in boiling water, it's too late. It's done. Dead. And guess what, Americans? You're that frog. You think these measures and actions being taken are really about curbing crime, curbing looting, keeping protests peaceful? You think, surely it can't be about targeting black people. Surely it's simply about weeding out criminal entities. Yeah. Surely not all police are bad. You know, there's a reason when protests take place, and protests are going on now against Israel, and rightfully so. There's a reason the focus remains on looters and rioters and criminals, when it's clear that those people in the larger scheme in protests are very, very insignificant minority. Insignificant minority of the protesting population. Even a monkey can see that. Ask yourself why punishments are being meted out to everyone, press and medics included. Because that's what's going on with the protests in favor of Palestine against the genocide that's being committed. They even arrest college professors. Anybody that's not on the right side of the argument. I could tell the story of how nonviolent agitators from eastern Nigeria were violently squashed by the Nigerian military, while other favored groups carry out deadly pogroms and aren't labeled terrorists, even when they threaten open violence on the government. That playbook is old. It sound familiar? I save my energy because I have no space to worry over two countries. Brother Sui is from Nigeria. But I can say this for free. Every day, your sensitivity is being eroded by these willful atrocities. The envelope for what you'll accept is being pushed. One day, all these things will be your new normal. Okay? What's normal? Look, remember how at the beginning of COVID-19 we were all, oh no, a pandemic, quick, protect everyone. Then a ton of people died. And then we were like, well, some people just gotta die. That's you now, but with police brutality, white supremacy, and racist leadership. What they do is, you know, they test the water. You got to do the work needed to fix up. Do it now. You think you had time, but you don't. Police in 50 states just don't behave like bastards for no reason. Protesters in 50 states aren't suddenly enemies of the country for nothing. Educate yourself and fix it now, or you'll be sorry. Yeah, I told you time and again, I mentioned to you. Every time they murder these race soldiers, that's what I call the police. Every time they murder some unarmed black man, woman, or child, okay, they're testing the waters to see what you will accept. You know, it's that old analogy. You know, what's news? A dog bites a man, that's not news. A man bites a dog, that's news. Now, you see a man bite a dog, and it happens so much, it's like, well, that's not really news anymore. It's not really news. Because it happens so often. The murder of our people by these race soldiers has become our norm. Wake up. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. an illusion, like you said, Sister Nzinka. What's normal? WHGE 95.3 FM. You're enjoying The Open Eye. Your host, Patrice Gibbs. What's normal? Well, and we've seen this happen before. A black man was denied a job interview until he reapplied with a white-sounding name. Oh, this is normal. A black man in Detroit is suing the local hotel after he claims he only received a job interview after reapplying for a position, having changed his name to sound more white. Dwight Jackson filed a lawsuit against the Shinoa Hotel, claiming he was denied a job when he applied as Dwight Jackson, but later was offered an interview when he changed his name to John Jabrowski. He initially applied under his real name in April for multiple jobs, which he was qualified for, including a job in reception. When he didn't hear back, he reapplied with the same credentials under a different name. Using an alias, Jackson was offered multiple interviews within the same week he applied. He accepted an interview and confronted the interviewer about the potential name bias, but was denied the job following the interview. No kidding. No crap, Sherlock. His attorney, John Markle, told CNN to be denied a job in 2024 in your hometown for the color of your skin goes beyond dollars and cents. It goes into the psyche of a person. For their part, Anastasioff, Senior Corporate Director of PR and Brand Communications of Sage Hospitality, which is Shinoa Hotel's operating partner, told CNN, we take this allegation very seriously and do not tolerate discrimination of any kind until we get caught. Yeah. Unless we get caught. We are committed to fostering an inclusive workplace where everyone has the opportunity to succeed and are dedicated to building a diverse workforce that reflects the community. I'll be damned. While it may surprise some that this kind of potentially blatant discrimination, also referred to as name bias in hiring, is still happening in 2024, author and human resource expert Dante King has a different perspective. I was on fire when I read this story. We have to understand both from a historically legal standpoint, but also from a historically psychic standpoint, that this culture was designed to be anti-black. King, who wrote the book, The 400-Year Holocaust, and serves as an adjunct assistant professor of medical education at the Mayo Clinic College of Medicine and Science, added that in his experience, discrimination such as name bias is rooted in mindsets that have been ingrained in our culture since the Atlantic slave trade began 400 years ago. Let me tell you something. Yeah, that's that BS. I remember a while back calling this company for a job, and on the phone, no, actually they called me after I sent in my resume, and on the phone they asked for Patrice Gibbs, and you know, I code switched on them. Yes, this is Mr. Gibbs. What can I do for you? We were wondering if you would be interested in coming in for an interview. Sure, what time? Could you join us tomorrow morning at 11? I'll be there. I showed up for that interview, and the receptionist looked up at me and said, "Oh, you're black." I said, "I'll be damned. Again? That happens every morning." noon and night. Yeah. It's not news. It's been going on. Now, they had this thing, you know, anytime a black person gets a job, it's DEI. Yeah. For the white conservatives especially, DEI has become the new N-word. Because you can't be qualified and black. They even call the vice president a black woman or something thereabouts. A DEI vice president. And how did she get to be a DEI vice president? Because like I said, you know, for them, that's the new N-word. It wasn't like they sent out ballots with kente cloth on them. Because DEI is the new N-word. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. Oh, Sister Nzinga, DEI stands for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, which they are definitely against. They don't mean to include us in a damn thing. That's why, you know, hold your tongue, hold your horses here. When you get a notorious Negro peon and they support him, see, they're okay with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, as long as that Negro peon is against black people. And you heard of Mark Robinson. Hey, Mark Robinson is the lieutenant governor of North Carolina. You talk about somebody Harriet Tubman would have shot, she'd have popped the cap up in his ass, no doubt. Mark Robinson has lost his black mega mind. Okay? And he's notorious for making controversial statements. But his most recent rant even caught some of his own supporters off guard. Many are calling Mark Robinson's remarks at a Southeast North Carolina church last month incendiary and bizarre. At the 30-minute speech where he endorsed violence, saying some folks need killing. Robinson called for the guys in green and boys in blue to handle wicked people doing wicked things, torturing and murdering and raping. He called out the Democrats. Some liberal somewhere is going to say, that sounds awful. Too bad. That's what he said. And the sparse applause, they were shaky to applaud that crap he's up saying. And this was in church. What was it? Members of the Lake Church gave sparse applause. Robinson went on to warn churchgoers that liberals are watching us. They're listening to us. They're tracking us. They get mad at you. They counsel you. They dox you. They kick you off of social media. They come in and close down your business. You know, this idiot has actually said that black people should pay reparations because so many white people helped end slavery. I mean, this guy is a straight idiot. Like I said, Harriet Tubman would have popped the cap up in his ass. So you know what that tells me? That all of us were not descendants of kings and noblemen. Some of us were descendants of traders and coons. I don't care who don't like that. WHGE 95.3 FM. Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist. And of course, by now, I know you've been hearing about Project 2025, MAGA's manifesto for the damage that they plan to do if they get back in power. One of the things that stood out to me was what they plan to do to veterans. Now, it was something when I looked this up, and I think it was Sister Tracy that posted this. Immediately, Facebook went on, oh, no, we got to fact check that. Okay? Now, this is what they plan on veterans cuts: to eliminate concurrent receipt of retirement pay and disability compensation for veterans. It's $160 million. In enrollment in VA medical care for veterans in priority groups 7 and 8. Narrow the eligibility for veterans' disability by excluding disabilities unrelated to military duties. And put a 10-year time limit on initial applications for disability compensation for veterans. Yeah, it makes me think of my good friend Vaughn, Vietnam veteran. Took him 20 years to get his benefits. He didn't really get what he should have, but he was on the verge of giving up, and they finally awarded him some benefits. Nowhere near what he actually deserved. And don't get it mixed. They're saying the quiet part out loud. For instance, when Representative Ayanna Pressley grilled the Project 2025 policymaker Jonathan Berry. Project 2025 complained how the Biden administration has been fighting for racial equity. They complain about that. Okay? This manifesto calls for eliminating data collection on race and ethnicity and employment. Okay? And she said this to him. She said on page after page, it calls for rescinding an executive order signed in 1965 that prohibits discrimination in hiring by contractors. And she said, Mr. Berry, do these horrible ideals sound familiar? He said it right out loud, right in their face with his full chest. He said those great ideals. To rescind the executive order that prohibits discrimination in hiring by contractors. Backing that up, reversing that to this white supremacist is a great ideal. Ayanna Pressley responded, these ideals sound familiar. Of course they do. Because you came up with them. She said, it's shameful to advance a vision attacking the very policies and agencies that have helped Black Americans secure jobs and earn a living and provide for their families. Okay? They want to eliminate the data collection on race equality. What they want to do, not only do they want to take away from the anti-discrimination rules But they want to stop collecting data so they can't show that they're discriminating. Absolutely disgusting. And this is who these people are. White supremacy has a plan. Don't get it mixed. But in the meantime, they want to talk about, black people are awful violent. We need to do something about this criminality and this violence. We did not come from a violent people. That's something that we learned. Violence is a learned contagion, meaning it's contagious. Violence is as American as apple pie. You don't think so? Just look at the history. Look. Take, for instance, the Burr-Hamilton duel. This is a gun duel. It took place in Weehawken, New Jersey, between Aaron Burr, who was the third U.S. Vice President at the time of the duel, and Alexander Hamilton, who was the first and former Secretary of Treasury. And this duel was a culmination of a bitter rivalry that had developed between the two. The Vice President of the country and the former Secretary of Treasury went out in the field. They were so contentious, they went out in the field and had a shootout. And Burr killed him. This is who these people are. This is their history. Or take, for instance, the caning of Charles Sumner. Okay? That took place in 1856 in the United States Senate chamber. Preston Brooks, a representative, a pro-slavery plantation owner or something from South Carolina, in the Senate chamber. He walked up on this dude with a walking cane and beat the hell out of him, damn near killed him. And he did it because Sumner fiercely criticized slaveholders, including a relative of Brooks. Almost killed him. Yeah, so this is, like I said, American as apple pie. And then there was the Civil War. They had what? The only country that had to have a whole goddamn war to end slavery. A civil war. Okay? And violence is deeply ingrained in American politics. It's not new. Do you know what the reaction was from newspapers when Booth assassinated Lincoln? They justified the murder of elected leaders. They said there's no reason to believe that Booth, in killing Lincoln, was actuated by malice or vulgar ambition. What motivated the assassin? God Almighty ordered this event. The assassin freed us from the threatened yoke of a tyrant. Yeah, other advocates of the Confederacy would face merciless finger of God providence. Because you know what? Violence, intimidation works. In recent years, Republicans have adopted this playbook. Leaders of the party have called for the execution of Democratic Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. They have circulated memes with guns pointed at her head. And remember, during the insurrection, Trump called for the lynching of his vice president. And they were with it. When they broke into the Capitol on January 6th, they promised they'll kill Pelosi if they found her. And one of these Project 2025 people, actually the head of one of their biggest think tanks, the Heritage Foundation, okay, Kevin Roberts, yeah, he said that there will be a second American Revolution and it will be bloodless if the left allows it. So that's just, you know, a straight up threat of violence. It will be bloodless if the left allows it. And of course, you know, Democrats are apoplectic right now. You know, because these people are coming and saying it with their full chest. His call for revolution, what's his name? What's that fool's name? I just said his name. Kevin Roberts, yeah, the Heritage Foundation president. And what they're calling vague reference to violence, he wasn't vague about it. You know, their idea of a second American Revolution is to undo the first one. Because what they want to do is, one, they want to overturn everything FDR did, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, including Social Security, workman's comp, labor protections, child labor laws. They want to unturn all of that. And of course, the social the social protections that Lyndon Johnson put in. They want to overturn the Civil Rights Act. They want to overturn, and they got the Supreme Court in there to do it now. Brown versus the Board of Education. They're going to challenge that. And the Supreme Court, the corrupt Supreme Court, is likely to go along with that. And happily so. And don't get it mixed. This is no scare tactic to get you to go against Trump. You shouldn't need a scare tactic to go against Trump. Yes, I know that Jim Crow Joe just showed himself to be a racist ass bucket when he was in a crowd of supporters and what have you, and there was a young black lady there, and he ignored her and walked right past her, and you should have seen the look on her face. But here's the thing. Trump is such a low-life, damaging, dangerous fool that, you know, he shouldn't be able to win an election as dog catcher against a dog. And then with the Supreme Court doing this thing that they did, with basically giving the president immunity and making him pretty much a king, 248 years ago, America declared independence from a tyrannical king, and now Trump and his allies want to make him one at our expense. And who you think the first people they're going to come after? Who they hate the most? They're actually dreaming of a violent revolution to destroy the very ideal of America. And it's just the ideal. The American dream is beep. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. All right. This is Patrice Gibbs, your third eye optometrist. You know, many of our people are not ready for the responsibility of revolution and nationhood. One of our biggest problems is that we have been robbed of our knowledge of managing a state. And as history shows, the African was very good at managing a state. From ancient Nubia, through Kemet, to medieval Benin, to Songhai, Mali, and Ghana, the African was very good at managing a state indeed. Somehow, the African in America retained this knowledge for quite some time, even in the face of brutal bondage. The irrefutable evidence of the amazing resiliency of the African are the hundreds of well-run black communities that sprung up all over America as soon as the physical chains of bondage were removed. And of course, the history of America does not want to talk about is the fact that most of these thriving black communities were destroyed by white supremacy, including white citizens and the American government. We weren't just robbed of our knowledge to manage a state, we were massacred for daring to do so. Remember, when the African ruled the world, it was a much better place. When black men ruled the world, something very important the ancient black people of Africa understood was balance. There was no word for poverty. There was no word for jail. The world was rich with resources that were freely shared. So no one had to rob and murder. That's why they were able to advance and progress and build and create and philosophize and ponder and learn and teach when black men ruled the world. The world is still rich with resources. Unfortunately, control of the world's resources have been seized by a bunch of white supremacist thugs and gangsters out of Europe and America. These thugs have also done a lot of environmental damage and seem hell-bent on destroying the world. These nefarious psychopaths have wantonly raped, robbed, and murdered for centuries. They must be stopped. At this point, the only true viable solution is global African supremacy. WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. This is Patrice Gibbs coming around to the close of the Open Eye. Thank you all for joining me, and thank you for the knowledge and what have you that you share and post, and gets me to thinking and helps me bring some eye-opening education to our people, to our listeners. And as I always tell you, destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. This has been Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Thanks for joining me. Yes, indeed. Like I said, global African supremacy. Because the world is a much better place with the black man ruling. Thanks for joining us.